Hi everybody, welcome to Studio's Open Studio Night presentation. Today is July the 7th, 2023. My name is Clifton Crawford. I'm the Executive Director and I appreciate you guys tuning in. I want to thank the City of Fort Worth and Arts Fort Worth for their support of our organization, the State of Texas, the Texas Commission on the Arts, the Anna L. and Carol Green Rhodes Charitable Trust, J.E.S. Edwards Foundation, R4 Foundation, and everybody out there who donates to help make SiNaCa Studios possible. We're a nonprofit dedicated to community, and we do things all the time in all kinds of great ways. We love getting things hot and melting them together. We work in the glass blowing processes, we work in kiln forming processes, flame worked glass processes, and cold working processes. We're going to talk a little bit about each of those processes a little bit today, and we're going to do some demonstrations and maybe learn a little bit about this wonderful material that we love so much. We are a nonprofit, and we do fundraising all the time. So if anybody out there likes what they see and supports what we do in our community, you can go to our website, you can call, you can come participate in classes, you can volunteer for special events, and make donations. Most recently, we had our ice cream social. Every year when it gets hot, because it's Texas, and I think it's 100+ degrees out there today, we have an ice cream social. I want to thank Melt Ice Cream for their support of that. I want to thank T&T Unique Finds for their support, Fort Worth Focused Realty, Stanton & Company for their support of the ice cream social, and everybody out there who helped us to reach our matching goal. We had a donor who committed $5,000, and we were able to raise $5,000. So we received that matching amount. So thank you all so much for that support. We still have a ways to go. Our goal is a little higher than that. So you can go to our website and check out the ice cream social page to donate to help us reach our goal, because we have a lot planned in the fall, right? It's really hot. The furnace is kind of gonna cool off after today. We're gonna cool it down so that we don't melt anybody. And then we'll be back up and operational in September, doing all kinds of demonstrations and classes, public programming and outreach programming in the community. So like I said, as a nonprofit, we reach into the community, and we belong to this community. We're honored to be Fort Worth's Glass Art Studio, and we do some really great work with the independent school districts, with wonderful partners like One Safe Place and Project Success and the Presbyterian Night Shelter. We're talking with some other great partners on launching some new program in health and wellness, helping to people, to express themselves and to learn from this and inspire them to be and live greater lives. So, glass blowing. In a nutshell, we process the raw material into a puddle, and we gather it out of the furnace at 2,300 degrees, 2,100 degrees, and we make things. And so we're in the gallery. The gallery represents 50+ artists from all over the country, and there's good examples of all those kinds of things. And so we're going to see a lot about the glass blowing studio today and learn about it, but in a different approach, we can work in a flame working studio where we take a very hot flame, a torch, and we can heat up rods, and we can create pendants and all kinds of jewelry. You can blow glass in front of a torch. You just need a big torch and tubes of glass that you can get hot and close off to make vessels and cups and hollow beads and all kinds of incredible things. So flame working is quite different than glass blowing. We also do things in the kiln forming studio, and kiln forming is quite different, where we can create pattern and design, and we can fuse things together. This is actually collaborative, where with some of these petals were done in the flame working studio. No, Jean's shaking her head. No, I'm wrong. This is all kiln forming. So where you can fuse things and create design and pattern and slump them over molds. You can also work very thick in the kiln forming studio, and you can cast into to make your work. By Chad Holliday. It's a large casting that was done in an oven. And in kiln forming, you don't typically touch the glass when it's hot and moving around. You create a pattern, you create your design, you put it in the oven, you program the melt, and then you get it started, and you can go and work on other things. And then after it cools, slumps, casts, flows, then we can cold work it. And so that brings us to the cold working studio, where we can grind and polish and sandblast and engrave. So that all kinds of interesting textures can be achieved. You can create pattern work and cut things. And sometimes we make things and we work things cold, and then we fuse them together. Or we blow things and then we cold through them. And sometimes we go back and forth where we can blow a bubble and then work a pattern in it. This is a piece from Mark Puda where he did just that. He blew a big bubble and he carved out some of this color, and then he got it hot and blew it up larger, and it stretched that pattern. So there's lots to see here. It's in glass blowing, worked glass, and kiln formed glass. We do all kinds of wonderful public invited to come and participate. You can come just once, or you can engage in a long curriculum, and we'll really show you how this happens and what can be made. And then the studio is public access. When I came out of school, and really when we talk about the community of glass in North Texas, there was no place for everybody. There was no place, there was no access to the studios. And so that's a big part of what SiNaCa Studios filled for our community. We have all of these studios, and they're all accessible to anybody who's interested in just trying it once or twice, or really engaging and learning about it, and then coming here and working and using this as their studio. And then showing and selling some work and creating a bit of a cycle of making things and selling things and making more things and improving and expressing themselves and telling stories. So lots of public programming, and then we do some incredible outreach programming with the schools. We do things that are focused in science, which is a lot of what we'll talk about today. We talk about education on a lot of fronts. Socio-emotional learning is a big deal now, and just by being expressive and being creative, people can change their behaviors and can be better students. By expressing yourself and telling your story and broadcasting that, a lot of people find a lot of healing happens in those processes. So we do programming in arts and culture. That's at our core. We do programming in education because it's a wonderful product, right? It's a wonderful material. It engages people. People are very curious, and it just inspires discovery. And that was a big part of why I became so interested in it, is I wondered, what is this, and how did this happen, and who found it, and where does it come from? So the science and the culture of it was fascinating. The history of it was fascinating to me, and it helped me to just engage in learning. And then we do work in health and wellness. So if you like any of what I'm talking about, help us out. Make a donation and help us take the next step. We've got a lot planned for this fall. We've got artists coming in for demonstrations. We've got residencies that'll be happening. We've got all kinds of programming for everybody to come engage in all of these three disciplines of hot working and in the cold working discipline. So thanks so much for tuning in. I want to thank Gene Fernandez, who's behind the camera. Kevin McGeehee is in the hot shop. Tatara Siegel is here. Brandy is in the back producing the show, and Heidi Childers, our operations director, is here helping make this all work. And it's about teamwork. It's about community, and really that's what SiNaCa helps to illustrate. So let's go into the hot shop, and the team's going to show us some things, and we're going to talk about some science, and we're going to have a little bit of fun. All right? Follow me. So in the hot shop, we have a furnace that's running at 2100 degrees, and inside there is our puddle of clear glass. So Kevin, in yellow, is going to gather out of the furnace, and he's going to bring a hot dollop of glass right over here and drip it into this tub of water. And what we're doing here is we're really shocking and stressing out the glass, right? SiNaCa Studios, the name is scientific. Silica, Si, is the most abundant solid element on the planet. And if you get it hot enough, it will melt and turn into glass. Sodium, Na, oh, that's so cool, lowers the melting point of the silica so that we can melt it at an achievable temperature with the fuels that we had 3,000 or 4,000 years ago. And then calcium gives this strength. It gives it longevity. It gives it durability, right? And if you add a little gold when you melt it, it turns pink. Or if you add a little iron, it turns green. So what you're looking at in this tub of water is what's referred to as a Prince Rupert's drop, right? Everything in this world, when you get it hot, it gets bigger. And when you cool it down, it gets smaller. So when we make glass things, most of the time, we have to put them away into an oven to cool off very slow, right? We cool them slowly so that the stress is alleviated, all the molecules become comfortable with one another, and it all shrinks at the same rate. But in this case, a Prince Rupert drop is capturing that stress by dripping a hot dollop of clear glass into water. The surface is shrinking rapidly. You can see the core is still very hot. And strangely enough, little bubbles form inside of this. There was no bubbles in there before, but now there are bubbles that have formed inside of there. The surface has constricted so rapidly, and all the molecules are under extreme stress, and they are holding that stress. So it's a very interesting thing, a Prince Rupert drop. There's wonderful stories if you want to look it up online. There's some great stories about this old French Prince Rupert who would have glassmakers make these, and he would give them as gifts to his party guests and talk about science, and they're very, very fun. So we're going to show you what happens here. Tatara is going to pull one of these out. It's a bit tangled up. There's quite a few in there. And you can see it's this kind of drop, and then it has this long tail. Now the drop at the end is kind of surprisingly durable. It's okay. We're good. So strangely, you can take that drop and you can hit it with a hammer. There are videos online where people shoot these things with bullets, and the drop at the end is incredibly durable. You can beat on it with a stick, but that little tail that's at the end is kind of the trigger. And if we break that tail, the whole thing will explode. And it's faster than the speed of sound. It blows, it kind of releases the stress, and it happens incredibly fast. So we've got this drop in our little protective cage, and then we're going to let that sit and cool down just a little bit more. And then by taking these little nippers and nipping the tail, you'll see that this drop is going to explode incredibly quickly. Here we go, Prince Rupert drop number one. Let's see what it does. Give it a pop. Wow. Yeah, that happens fast. And there's some great videos. If you guys go online, you can find Prince Rupert drop videos. Smarter Every Day did some really cool videos, and you can see them under high-speed cameras, and you can watch the break happen from where you snap the tail, and it explodes into thousands of pieces. So we've got quite a few of these drops that they made just now. So we're going to pop a few more. The science of it is really interesting. Yeah, give it a tap. He wants to hit that one with a hammer to show you that the drop itself is outrageously durable. It's a little bit nerve-wracking because if you accidentally snap one, it's almost like sandblasting yourself, as it just shoots in every direction.
I made those molds, and my arms were going around all the tails, trying to make sure nothing was leaking.
So we also were thinking that it might be interesting to encapsulate a drop in some acrylic, and to see if when we pop it, it does anything different. So we have a drop that's actually been captured within some acrylic that we're going to see if it'll pop. We've got several unique things, and we're going to go through the next probably 30 minutes of showing you some different things. We're going to work on some science in the beginning. These Prince Rupert's drops, you saw that happen in a hot kind of way right out of the furnace. Now they're cold, and we'll show you that one that's encapsulated in a second. And then we're going to do some blown bubbles in the water. We're going to apply some baking soda. Oh, we're going to give this one a tap. Let's see how strong that really is. Just watch out for the tail. As long as the tail doesn't break, you know, that thing is crazy strong. Yeah, it's very interesting. You can whack it. As long as the tail doesn't break, it doesn't break. And there's, like I said, there's some videos out there, people shooting them with bullets, and you can see the bullet explode on the surface of it, and then the vibration wiggles the tail, because just the tiniest little snap of the tail, and the whole thing just pops and explodes.
All right, let's do the big one.
Very interesting.
Not yet. Do this last one, and then we'll start breaking the mold.
Yeah, we're gonna do that last one, and then we're gonna see how it looks if we pop it in the acrylic. The acrylic got extremely hot whenever it's set, so it'll be interesting to see how that works. Yeah, that's a big one.
That's a big one.
That is a real big one. These are a bit dangerous, so we don't sell them. We don't make these for sale. Pow. Ooh, that was loud.
I had to squeeze hard on that one too.
So this one, the acrylic looks like it cracked in the process. So that'll be interesting to see. Yeah, I want to thank Topo Chico for their support. Topo Chico has come on board as an annual sponsor for our Open Studios night. So we have Topo Chico on hand. If you're ever around our facility, come by and have a topo with us. So thanks again to Topo Chico for their support. Let's see what happens. I'm not going yet. I'm waiting. Let's see if this works. Ready?
Ready.
Topo Chico. Did it do it?
Wow,
It broke the glass?
But it held the...
Oh, wow. That's crazy. So the acrylic held the stress, but it looks like it projected out the end of the drop. Look at that.
Oh, because it was touching the side.
Yeah, I guess it was touching the side. Wow, that's weird. So that was the Prince Rupert drop in acrylic. We've got a couple of more in acrylic. See if we can get...
Those might have to be out.
Can you see that if I push it right up next to the edge? What do you think? You want me to turn it? See if we can get a better view of it? Okay, so that one's kind of close. I gotta have to reach way in here. Y'all ready? Let's see how this does. So I'm just gonna nip the tail that's right over here. Ready? 3, 2, 1. So it's kind of transparent. Looks like the second it pops, it kind of goes opaque.
Look at the lines on this one.
That's wild.
Wow, that's super pretty.
No, the other one's still intact. We got one more. Went that way. You can see the end of it because it's facing you, or this way.
The other way.
This way.
Yeah, it's clear.
Wonder if I can get a view straight down from above. I'm gonna try to do a video also.
There's a line on
Bear
this
with us,
box.
everyone. There's. Let me scoot it over.
There's like a black line that's right through. Yeah, can we do it on a side that doesn't have a scratch? We'll do like on this one. How's that? Is that better? Yeah. You want me to do up top?
Yeah, because you can see it.
The problem with up top is the reflection.
Well, I was gonna go inside. Got it?
Okay.
Yeah, this is cool. I wasn't sure if that was even gonna work. It looked like they might have cracked a little bit. Okay, ready?
Yeah.
Prince Rupert drop encapsulated in acrylic. Take 3. 1, 2, 3.
That's really fantastic.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, pull it out. Let's look at it.
Very interesting.
So the one has a reflection where it looks like there's 2 in the box. Look at the lines on this. That's
Yeah.
super cool. Oh my God, flip it over.
This way? Oh yeah, that's an excellent view. That's the one we should have done. It's always afterwards you figure out how to do this. We've been wanting to do this where we encapsulate them for some time. That's interesting that it broke the glass that it was in.
Yeah, but now we can take the glass off.
Yeah, that's true. We could take the glass off and keep it.
The positive. But it almost has an impact point.
Yeah, that's
See
very
it? Where it
interesting.
touches
yeah,
the
where it
glass.
popped. It's like some of the acrylic actually jumped off.
Yeah, maybe.
So here at SiNaCa Studios, we do a lot. We talk about the science of all of this. We talk about the chemistry, the physics, the combustion that happens in the glass blowing studio. Like I said, the furnace runs 24/7, and in here is a bowl of perfectly clear lava running at 2100 degrees. It's actually at 2130 right now. And it comes to us in a sandy form. It looks like really perfect white sand. And we fill it up every week because there's about 400 pounds in this furnace when it's full. And we use about 300 a week whenever we're really moving. We have a lot of classes, we do a lot of workshops. The studio is, like I said, public access, so there's people who come and rent the studio to make their own work. We've got a really good group. But we're in a 2,600 square foot gas station from 1890, you know, in an incredible neighborhood. We're in the now near Southside Arts Cultural District, and it's such a wonderful community. It's the largest bungalow community in the country behind us in the Fairmount neighborhood. There's so many wonderful people here, and we're so fortunate to have found our home in such a supportive community. There's a bunch of great restaurants. There's a lot of dirt moving, a bunch of new residents are going to be moving in. The city of Fort Worth is a really kind of happening place. I think that we were the #1 fastest growing city over the past year. So there's a whole lot going on in Fort Worth, and we're honored to be the glass studio for the community. So thank you guys all. We're going to continue. I'm going to hand off the mic to Jean, and she'll keep talking. But I want to thank all of those out there who have supported us and everybody's donations over the years to help make this possible. We got a lot planned. We're not going to give up. We're going to keep growing and keep doing new things. So help us out, all right? So again, I want to thank Kevin McGeehee, one of the founding artists, and he is the studio's coordinator. To Tara Siegel, who is our education and outreach coordinator. She helps to build these strong partnerships and programming in the community. Jean Fernandez, who's our visiting artist and residency coordinator, who helps to bring artists to town, to expose them to this new market, and to really kind of elevate glass art in our community. And again, my name is Clifton Crawford, executive director. And she's gathered out of the furnace. She's blowing a small bubble. Here it comes, blowing a small bubble. And we're going to show you a couple of different things. We're going to plunge this glass into some water, and you'll be able to see it crack but still move. And then we're going to have some fun. We got some eggs, some bacon. We'll make a little breakfast. We got some potatoes. We got some organics, some seeds and flowers. And we're going to put some glass over all these things. We got some fabric. There's some copper. We'll probably take it a little bit to the extreme side with some salts and some acids and some fireworks. And I'm going to hand this off to Jean so that I can help to make all of this happen today.
All right, thanks, Clifton. So you guys are watching us experiment today in a science edition. SiNaCa is really founded on the science of glass making. It's in our name, silica, sodium, and calcium. So those of you who have been here or worked with us in the past know that science is a very big part of what we do here. And it's inherent in glassmaking in terms of physics and chemistry. There's just no way of getting away from it. And so we gathered a bunch of suggestions from you guys online, on our social media platforms, and we're gonna go through a huge list of basically what happens if you do this with glass. And so I think Tatara right now is preparing to blow a big bubble into the glass. And so we watched her inflate the bubble, take a second gather, shape it up. And you'll see that she's got a hose attached to the blowpipe. And that's allowing her to inflate and push air into that blowpipe to inflate the glass. Are you gonna blow into the water, T? Yeah? Okay, cool. So we've got this big old tank set up so you guys can watch up close and personal. Glass is super hot, and when it comes into contact with a cold surface, you can see that there's a lot of thermal shock. Now, one of the things you probably noticed right off the bat is that the glass, as soon as it entered the water, it didn't crackle immediately. There's usually a thin layer of steam that comes into contact with the water, and that steam can sometimes protect the glass surface for a little bit. Once that water gets agitated and moves across the glass surface, then that steam bond is broken and the water can actually crackle the glass. So sometimes when you stick hot glass into a very still body of water, you'll notice that it doesn't crackle immediately. It crackles after a little bit of agitation. But what is cool is that the glass is all crackly, and that crackle texture will stay behind with the application of a little bit of heat. So you can,
We don't have enough heat.
yeah, so you can hear, hopefully you guys could maybe hear that, but the tools that T is using kind of create a little bit of a crackly sound. So the surface of the glass is certainly textured. Now if we were to leave that out without reheating it, the glass would just break eventually. It's stressed out. All of those cracks are not stable. But with a little bit of reheating, you can get those crackles to stay behind in the glass. It's kind of a cool decorative element. What are we doing next? Baking soda. Adding it into the water. I don't know what you guys think that is gonna do, but baking soda generally has a bubbly effect in glass. So most studios really hate having baking soda around because it gets all over the place very, very easily and then causes all sorts of contamination of bubbles in the glass. So a lot of the things we're doing today are going to be a little bit experimental. One of the really great things that pulls a lot of us into glassmaking is the curiosity about the material. So not everything is going to do what we expect, but that's kind of part of the fun of this. So T is making a little thicker of a slurry. And then I think Clifton's gonna dip this glass into that.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. We want it real white.
So that we get a lot of that baking soda on the surface. Nice. Now baking soda generally has some sort of chemical reaction with the glass and causes a lot of bubbling.
I'll gather over it and I'll come right here and you'll probably see bubbles grow.
All right. So we're gonna go into this 2100 degree furnace where we keep our clear glass all the time. Now I don't know if you guys can see that, but the glass is super duper bubbly on the inside there. Usually bubbles are not something that we want in the glass, but if you're doing things with bubbling, baking soda is one of the best ways to get that to happen.
Super
Yeah. As this cools down, you can hopefully see that a lot. Quite wild. Do you know what it is that is in baking soda that reacts to the chemistry of glass? It's just a bunch of off-gassing from the baking soda itself? So you'll notice that the team, as they're working with hot glass, they're going into this little reheating chamber right here, this tiny little baby guy. And that's basically because as we're working the glass is cooling down on us. So we gotta make sure that we add heat back in intermittently so that the glass doesn't crack. You guys saw that with the bubble that T did. If you let the glass get too cold, it's gonna crack. And so
Another question that people had was, what happens if we just blow really hard? So
oh
if we blow
yeah.
this into a big bubble.
Yeah.
See, I'm just gonna get this hot and blow it into a huge bubble.
Yeah, one of the questions y'all had was what happens if the glass is overblown or into a really, really giant bubble?
Okay.
So Clifton's gonna heat this up. He's gonna build up a lot of heat into the glass. And that little glory is not quite as hot as the others, right?
No, it's probably just about 21.
Just around 2100 degrees or so. So close to our furnace temperature. So Clifton's going to use a block. These blocks are made of fruit wood. And then you'll notice that they're saturated in water to keep the blocks from burning up too quick. Now wood, of course, is flammable. You guys all know that. And so we soak them in water to make sure that the glass doesn't burn them up too fast. Those blocks are kind of cup shaped and really help to cool the outside surface so that when the glass blowers are blowing into it, it doesn't expand uncontrollably. All right. So Clifton's heating up quite dramatically, and then he's gonna come out of there and just blow, blow, blow into a giant bubble. Whoa.
Stale for reference. It's used.
Now you'll notice that Clifton also stopped turning. And one of the questions we got asked is, what happens if you stop turning? You can see how very dramatically off-center the bubble is.
Looks like an amoeba.
Wow, that's pretty.
Yeah, pretty wild.
Stay thick.
Now this glass is not super stable. It's got baking soda in it. It's got a bunch of bubbles in it. And we're not putting it away in an annealer to cool down slowly. So eventually this glass is gonna break. You can already kind of hear it crackling. And so generally when we blow glass, we blow it in a more controlled fashion, and then eventually we put it into a controlled heating environment so that the glass has time to cool down slowly back to room temperature. What are we doing now?
The salts.
Ooh, What salts are those, Kevin?
Random bath salts, no idea. Not the ones you
Like Epsom salts?
Yeah, you wanna
Hopefully.
bring it, wanna
Oh no.
I don't know. They've been around the house for a decade plus.
Gotcha. So Kevin's brought some stuff in to experiment with. Looks like a bunch of different salts. We've got citric acid here, boric acid. That's got a poison label on it. And then some random salts, which are, I'm assuming are bath salts, Epsom salts. So Kevin has taken a gather.
Grab the camera and get a picture of that.
say again?
Grab the camera and get a picture of that before you press it.
He's going to shape it up. And then what's the plan, Kevin? You're going to roll
Into
it.
an infusion bowl,
Oh,
and then we'll keep the interior nice and hot, and sprinkle some of the salts in there and see what happens.
see what they do. So if these are Epsom salts, that means that there's probably a high amount of magnesium in them, would be my guess. But I'm not 100% sure on that. Kevin's plan is to blow this big bubble into a bowl-like shape and then place the salts in it. So hopefully we'll see a little bit of a reaction between the salts and the surface of the glass. Now again, we're experimenting today. This is also a curiosity for us because this isn't something we usually do with glass. But some of these things tend to create really cool, interesting effects. So I guess we'll see what happens. These are unlabeled, so I'm not quite sure what they are, but we'll find out.
Ed, what do you need?
Nothing yet.
All when you're ready.
So Kevin's got this blown into a bubble, and you'll see that he's attached his hose. That's what's going to allow him to make this bowl shape by himself. So Kevin's using a tool called a jacks. The jacks are going to allow him to create a little bit of a constriction. You'll see glassblowers use this tool quite a lot for this. That constriction is what's going to allow the glass to eventually break free from that metal pipe. And so most forms will have some sort of a constriction between the glass form and the steel blowpipe. Going again, in for reheat. And Kevin is now just heating the top of that big old bubble because we're going to draw that top surface back to create a bowl shape. So while Kevin's working on that, I want you guys to see this little bubble that we made. Now that it's cool, you can see how thin it is. It's like kind of flexible and super duper thin. So you can get the glass to be pretty thin, and as it gets thinner, it gets more flexible.
Baking soda made a really interesting pattern.
Yeah.
Bubbles and bubbles on top of bubbles.
So again, not a very stable piece, right? Because we didn't anneal it, so it's breaking really easily. It's also super thin, so this isn't something you'd want in your home. But really interesting to see how glass can be a really, really solid, thick, sturdy material, or it can be very delicate and fragile and break super duper easily. All right. So Kevin's got this. a little bowl shape. Tatara's put a little bit of
Ooh, it smells heavenly.
Epsom salts in, popping a little violently. Oh! Jeez.
Maybe a little less.
It smells good. It's like Pop Rocks for glass board.
What's in Epsom salts? Is it magnesium or potassium? Magnesium.
Yeah,
Is that what that is? Is Epsom?
probably.
It's probably why it smells so great.
Smells good. So when things start smelling around here, we're gonna do that. Alright,
So I'd imagine the other one will probably do the exact same thing.
Oh, okay, that's just a different smell?
Probably.
Okay. Do you wanna do it or no?
So those little rocks of salt probably have some moisture in them.
Is it yours?
The moisture is what's causing that popping. So the moisture inside each of those tiny little rocks of salt
I'm assuming you use these.
is heating up very quickly and then
Yeah,
popping.
why don't we do the forecast?
Okay.
How you put some of the back salt?
So a lot of the time, rocks, crystals, things like salt will want to explode because of the moisture that's inside the form.
Flash. This I have no idea what's going to happen. We're supposed to make it green if we like get it with
Yeah, I don't know if we should use that.
what the skull and crossbones says poison. Yeah.
Danger. Maybe I should err on the side of less,
Oh, that's
Yeah.
just in case. Nope. Bad idea.
not much.
Over here.
Not much, it just like kind of stuck to the surface. Looks like it's interacting with the glass a little bit. It's fuming the glass. If you look at it, it's like kind of silvery on the inside. Could just be the touchback of the bubble, but
True.
looks a little bit silvery. Weird. All right. I think we're gonna try some citric acid next. I don't know what all these things are gonna do. They're probably interacting with the glass in some way. So Kevin's getting that bowl hot again. And then citric acid generally is something that's going to eat into the surface of whatever you put it on. So it'll probably interact with the glass a little bit. Ooh. Fumes.
Point it this way, Jeff.
It's growing.
That's the citric acid. Oh,
Let's do more of that.
Oh, that melted.
yeah,
I mean,
hot
that's,
sugar.
that's edible.
Yeah.
Let's do more.
This one?
That was fun.
Ready?
Just break off a little, like a quarter of that.
What?
It's like the Olympics. Go Paris. Neat.
Smells like citric acid.
Yeah, it does.
Cool.
Fireworks?
Oh boy.
Oh boy.
Not yet.
So the team pulled a little bit of the interior of sparklers out into this cup. So that's got to be what's inside sparkler. It's gunpowder and what? We don't know.
Things that aren't made in this country.
I don't know. Ask Google.
So whatever is inside sparklers, we're gonna play a little bit with that.
And set it over the top of one of the flowers. Sure.
Break that off onto the fireworks thing.
Yeah, what would be fun too is to break it off and then put things in it later on.
Oh yeah, let's put it in. Oh, I got it.
Flip you and make it small better. So that was way more effective.
So these were those little salt rocks that
Yeah.
that we were talking about earlier. About they have a little bit of, they've got a little bit of moisture in them, and that moisture is gonna want to pop open because of the sudden heat.
We have a fire, let's put this on.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. That was always my plan.
I just thought we do what we did last time. Peel it outside of the shop and let it go.
No, that was just his shoes.
Suffocated.
All right.
So you're gonna break it off and then you want me to put the gunpowder in?
Sure.
So the team's gonna break this bowl off onto a pile of sand, and then Tatara's gonna dump a little bit of gunpowder in it.
It'll be even more weird with all this other crap sitting in it.
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll get a little bit of a show. Yep.
Somehow you turn it off.
Woo! Are you okay?
Not at all. Turn the camera off.
Woo. That was quick. Hope you guys caught it.
Yeah, I know. That's why I was like, we should stop. When Gina and I were still opening, I was like, we should stop.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just coming in the OSHA regulations.
Huh?
Someone online posted that they wanted to see flowers and leaves and botanicals. So we've got a few of these set up that the team is gonna drop some hot glass on so you guys can see what happens. Now, anything that has moisture is gonna generally want to send some air up through the glass. But I guess we'll have to see, because a lot of the time glass will do things that we're not fully expecting.
See, now I'm going to squish it flat and I'm going to kind of draw it out and lay it on it and cut it off.
All right.
Little band.
Sounds good. So Clifton is gonna gather up a bunch of hot glass. You'll see that he's using what we call a punty, which is a solid steel rod. These 1/2-inch rods gather up just a little bit of material. And so he'll go in to grab a little more. He's said that he is planning on putting a little band of clear glass over this flower. So, the furnace is sitting at 2100 degrees. You'll notice he cooled down the glass that he pulled out. And that cooling process allows him to grab a little bit more glass on the end of that punty. So we got a much bigger gather now. He's flattening it a little bit to make it easier to draw.
Poor little flower.
And you can can see almost immediate incineration of the object. Now, one of the cool things about organics is they might bubble. This one looks like it's seeping a little bit of water, but they almost always will leave behind ash slash a little bit of relief in the glass, which is pretty cool. Y'all having a annealer up? Want
Yeah,
to
we
box?
have an annealer.
Box any of these?
Yep.
What do you want? A box it? This one?
Maybe I'm trying to get the tips a little cleaner.
So, very interesting because some of these objects that we're playing with, we have no idea how they're going to react to the glass. What we do know is that because of the heat, the extreme heat, the objects almost instantly incinerate. The levels of moisture is kind of an unpredictable thing, as well as how it's going to interact in the glass. Like so. This is kind of a learning process for all of us, which is cool. So Clifton is going to gather up again. He's gonna drop another dollop of glass on this little guy, these purple flowers. And it sounded like the purple flowers were a little bit drier than the other ones, so. Hopefully you guys can see the relief in there. That's one of the coolest parts about working with organics is the amount of relief that they trap.
And that's a little stronger. These are so soft that it just crushes them. They add a little bit of dried out strength to it.
Yeah.
You go just a dollop right on
Yeah,
top
I
of the
was
shell.
just gonna wait and move this and let that warm up, so it has a less likelihood of cracking. So I'm just trying to, that other one that's here cracked.
Okay.
So I just want to add a little heat and then I'll box this and just move it over and give it a set.
All right. So the team is gonna ladle over this. Which one are we doing next? The little shell?
Kevin is
Can
about
you-
to take the bowl off.
Give me a few seconds before you guys do that one. All right. I don't need this camera, but she's on it. What is that? The flower?
Yep.
Oh.
A little bit of amber dye.
All right, we're gonna drop this glass over the shell, I'm guessing, right? So Tatara suggested letting the shell warm up a bit because most likely it's gonna want to crack. And so Clifton's gathering up big old drop of glass. Almost immediately cracking there. That's pretty cool. So a lot of the pieces of the shell are still kind of captured in there. Maybe you guys can see that. Pretty cool.
For sale at Art Stubble.
Yeah. Now you'll notice with these objects, Tatara is grabbing them on a couple of paddles. We're not leaving them out, saving them. We're putting them into this cabinet-looking thing called an annealer, which is meant to slowly cool the glass down. So I mentioned earlier during this video that we cool the glass slowly or it's going to want to crack on us. And so we got to make sure that the glass goes into the annealer so that it cools down slowly to So the next victim is this little tiny piece of crystal.
Right? Do you want me to stick it
Now-
on the cold or put it on the warm spot?
This looks like it might be amethyst. One of the things about crystals that we were talking about earlier is they could explode from moisture. So it's possible that we'll put hot glass on this and then we'll see a little bit of a pop on the inside of glass, but really not a good way to know for sure until we try it.
Cold glass, hot glass, and cold glass?
All right, this was one of the things from online too. Someone wanted to see hot glass put into cold glass.
Thank you to our sponsor,
Yeah, thanks to our sponsors. Topo Chico's been sponsoring us,
giving us all this great glass to play with.
and we have been making full use of those glasses, recycling the glass bottles into all sorts of different things. So hot glass and cold glass don't mix very well. As you can see, there's almost instantaneous shock.
Hey, one bar. I'm gonna put the topo over there.
Over time, the hot glass will start to heat up the cold glass, and so the likelihood of shock is less so. But thermal shock is a pretty big problem with glassmaking. You can't cool the glass down too quickly, and you cannot heat the glass up too quickly. I don't know if I like that. closed container, I wouldn't do that.
That I didn't touch the bottom of that.
Someone wanted to see a full bottle of Topo Chico encased in glass, but I think that's a little bit of a bad idea. Anything that's got trapped moisture is very likely to cause a problem.
Why is the ice cream not in here?
All right. So one of our sponsors for the ice cream social is Melt. Melt ice cream down the street, and they brought over a bunch of delicious ice cream. I believe our next one is going to be pouring a little bit of hot glass into an ice cream cup.
One of our other favorite sponsors.
Thanks, Melt, for sponsoring us. That looks like some delicious ice cream. If you guys have never tried Melt ice creams before, you don't know what you're missing out on. They are down the street on Magnolia Avenue. Really, really great place to be on a hot day like today.
Get a photo of this too.
Is it good?
How's that boric acid and citric acid taste?
So Clifton's got a gathering ball. It looks a little similar to a punty, but it's got a metal ball on the end. And that's going to allow him to gather up a little more glass than a punty will. Hot glass doesn't stick to cold metal very easily, so we are heating up that gathering ball to get the metal nice and toasty before gathering up on the end of that. Now a lot of people ask us about the glass in our furnace, and it is clear even though it looks bright yellow. It is clear. Ooh, gooey. That's a great photo.
Oh, it smells good. It did smell this stuff in there.
Do you know when was the last time when you burnt rubber and other dumb stuff? Oh, the boil over is fantastic.
Yeah.
Got like a nice caramelization to it.
Did you get that photo of the metal?
Yes, absolutely.
The melt is melting.
What do we do with all this glass?
Melt ice cream is pretty delicious. If you've never tried them, highly recommend. They support us every year for the Ice Cream Social, which is our annual fundraiser for the summer. And Clifton did mention this earlier, but we did
Yeah, can you get enough?
reach our match that we were trying to go for, but we are not yet at our goal. So if you guys are thinking about donating, you want to support us in the things that we're doing to help support us for this summer, please think about donating to us. You can go to our website, and there are many, many ways to donate. Donations help to keep this facility running, so we use them for repairing equipment, maintenance, doing free programming for the public. Things like this are funded by your donations. So all the content that we put online, most of that was funded through donations. So we really appreciate all of your support, and hope you guys will join us for the next Ice Cream Social next summer. Are we doing that? Are we doing the Topo Chico lid? So we've got a few different things going on here.
A single gather?
That little sky is aluminum, right? No, what is it? Steel? Tin? It's made out of some type of metal.
Little plastic in there too.
With probably a little plastic for that ink.
I'm gonna be right to your right.
And we've got those diamond shears or something.
Clifton's gathering a little bit of glass.
Slippery.
You can see the cold metal resists the glass until it heats up a little bit. So what we were talking about earlier is pretty important. You got to preheat your punties and pipes before you try to gather glass on them, or the glass will want to slip right off.
Logo's still there.
Is it?
Yeah.
No way, really?
Yeah.
There's the seal, the little plastic seal.
See it? Topo.
That's cool. It's not super visible on film, but
We put the whole thing
the
in
logo
here.
is still slightly visible in there.
Yeah. Okay. And I pushed it around a little bit.
Most of that color we were seeing on the lid was plastic or paint of some sort, and that's all gonna burn away slash melt away. But pretty cool.
Which might be kind of entertaining. You don't want these things to fall out.
Pretty cool to see how different things interact with glass. We're gonna ladle on this little flower thing.
And then it's gonna go here.
Ah, got it. Sorry.
It's gonna go in here. And then we're gonna spread a little bit.
All right. So we've got a little graphite mold. Kevin pulled a big ladle of glass out of the furnace for this. We're gonna spread this glass around.
Want me to pop that bubble or?
Sure, why not? Not that big.
I'm not fully sure what the experiment is gonna be, but I guess we're gonna find out.
Now we got a little valley.
What's going in there?
Bacon and eggs.
Oh, we're cooking. All right, guys. It's
We're gonna
a
let it get
little
cold.
it's a little past noon, so I think this is brunch time, but we're gonna make some eggs and bacon. Clifton's making a little valley so that the eggs and bacon don't slide around outside of that.
Oh yeah. Nice. Nice call. Not too
We're gonna
hot.
check the temperature to make sure it's not too hot, which it probably is.
1307.
1307.
We'll let it get to 500 before we cook. 1279. It's
Now
fine.
the glass cools off pretty fast. Remember,
that'll work good.
we gotta make sure that the glass heats up again. If we're planning on working it again, this glass, as it cools down past a certain point, it's gonna want to crack. That graphite too is soaking up heat from the glass.
I did try to find some not bacon for you.
Aw, so sweet.
That Kroger sucks. 1122.
It's 11:22. Still a little hot for cooking on, but as this glass gets under 1,000 degrees, we are dealing with the potential for the glass to crack.
In the coin.
There's a point there's a range where the glass really starts to experience stress. And so we gotta watch out for that temperature zone, but we also can't cook eggs on over 1,000 degrees. So the team is going to let it cool down a little bit before throwing eggs and bacon into it. All right. All right. So, Brandy, I've had to grab the other camera. What temperature did you say it's at?
It was at 889.5.
889. Still a little hot for cooking, but a lot better than over 1,000 degrees.
Maruko.
Yeah, Maruko.
Quality Japanese cooking.
The bacon's almost instantly searing.
And this is why I microwave my bacon. Proof that hotter is not always better.
Yeah, definitely not. You gotta slow cook those eggs.
Yep.
Nice medium heat.
Oh, extra crispy.
So definitely some of the funner things we get to do as glass makers is really just play around. Glass temperature is still at around 840.
Or actually 505.
Oh,
I'll probably get
cool.
the graphite.
Around 500 degrees. What temperature is the stove usually at? Somewhere around 400 or so?
I
on
like
high
cooking
heat?
my bacon at 400 degrees for about 7 minutes.
I do 350.
350?
And I hit it on the boil right at the end. So
Yeah.
it's still soft on the inside. crispy on the
Yeah.
outside.
So definitely still a little toasty. This bacon's looking real crispy.
Best way to eat it.
A little too crispy.
Ooh, crunchy good. I bet we'll fry an egg super fast.
Crispy bacon.
Very crispy. Don't recommend doing this at home, folks. This is not something you see in our studio very often, but quite a fun thing to experience in a glass studio.
Use the oil in the pan,
Yeah.
but it doesn't really cook it the same as putting it in a regular glass.
There's a lot of grease in there.
Spray stuff.
Yeah.
Now you can see that the glass is starting to crack. We talked a little bit about thermal shock and glass cooling down too fast and what happens when it cools down past a certain point. Almost instantly fried. Just step outside and
35
cook.
o'clock a day.
Yeah.
You too can do this.
Cook your eggs on the concrete. This looks like it's closer to stovetop temperature.
Great sequoia.
I think it's reading.
About 289 or so.
Depends on where you are.
Yeah, somewhere in there. The edges of the glass are almost always going to be cooler than the center.
Whoa, they're like fluffy.
Yeah.
Weird. That's
We made
crazy.
an implosion bowl. You can do sunny
Kevin
side up.
came, Kevin came prepared with the spatula.
Yeah, the glass has gotten a little cold.
Yeah.
As you can see, it's cracking.
Yeah. Oh,
Oh, it's thoroughly cracked.
Leak through.
No, but I'm probably not going to eat the eggs
yeah, because of the
because of the glass.
little
That
glass
one's probably
crack.
all right, but
Maybe
that
not
one
that
Just
one.
gotta get it off in one piece and then it'll be alright.
oh, okay. I'll let you have that one. I know you will.
Yeah, once the glass is cracked, we don't want to chance
Now I'm hungry.
ingesting little tiny shards of glass. So